especially for those retail traders that are relatively newer to the game, is distance yourself from money. And that is not, yes, we're all there to make money. Yes, we all know exactly we manage our risk. But what I mean is when people have like 200 quid or 300 quid in the money, right? And then they go like, yeah, no, I'm not taking profit, blah, blah, blah. And then it goes like, it costs 100 quid at the end. So when you attach yourself with the actual notional risk, actually the money of things, you then, and I'm talking now retail, not professionals, a retail person will ultimately usually start to think about goods, stuff they can buy, right? Creating more scar tissue, I personally think, than when you try to distance yourself from money. I do most of the stuff in a percentage play.
Welcome to the AlphaMind Podcast, hosted by Stephen Goldstein and Mark Randall. The podcast which is always looking to help traders, whether they're new to the game or whether they are seasoned and experienced traders, explore how they can be better, more productive, more effective traders by looking at the human aspects of trading performance. The AlphaMind Podcast proudly partners with the esteemed Society of Technical Analysts, a distinguished not-for-profit organisation dedicated to providing informative and educational resources for its members. We're excited to announce that their upcoming second Technicals to Trading Systems one-day conference in London, featuring an array of exceptional speakers, will be held on Tuesday the 16th of April. This offers both in-person attendance, where you can take part in fantastic networking opportunities with like-minded people, or you can view it online. Visit the STA website at technicalanalyst.com for further details and registration. Furthermore, we're thrilled to endorse the STA's outstanding home study course. As a special offer for AlphaMind Podcast listeners, you can enjoy a £100 discount on this exceptional program, crafted by world-renowned technical analysis experts. Visit our website at alpha-mind.net to learn more and take advantage of this exclusive opportunity. Now, on with this week's podcast. Welcome to this week's AlphaMind Podcast, and we are delighted to have with us today Beat Nussbaumer and Patrick Reid. Beat has been a guest before on the AlphaMind Podcast, and he comes with a wealth of experience, and he has worked at illustrious banks such as Goldman Sachs, where he was involved both in foreign exchange trading and proprietary macro trading, and of course, and then he went on to Commerzbank, a bank where I worked, but he joined some years after I left, where he was head of foreign exchange. Today he mentors a lot of traders keen to develop their own path into trading, particularly in the retail space. And with him is Patrick Reid, who collaborates with Beat on trader development, but also works for his own company in partnership with a couple of colleagues, the Adamis Principle. Patrick has come to trading a little bit later after a career at the BBC. So he comes to this as someone who has been through that learning experience later in life, has been successful in making that very challenging transition to a trader as a second career, and now, as well as trading himself, also trains other people keen to develop their own path and journey into foreign exchange and macro rates trading. Thank you, gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the AlphaMind Podcast. And we're going to talk a little bit about this theme of developing trader performance, really as a transitional or alternative career for individuals coming later in the life rather than through the experience of the professional trader market. So let's be keen to hear your views on this.
Sure. Yeah, first of all, thanks very much, Stephen, for having me back. I got to say, I still get the odd student in 2024 who, when I ask them how they got to know me, they go like, oh, I was listening to that podcast. And actually just earlier this year, I put it back on my website, and I was shocked to see it was in 2019. So that's how time is flying, right? So really great to be back. To be honest, I think when we go back a few years, I would say COVID and the working from home has suddenly created a lot of interest in the trading space. Obviously, we have seen the meme stocks hype, the Robin Hood story on the equity side. We've seen the Bitcoin or the crypto mania on that side in 2020. Things may have calmed down a little bit. once people had to go back to work. But I think what has stayed on is that people realize, oh, wait a minute, I actually quite fancy working from home, right? They also obviously had time in their, work day from home to trade on a parallel level, right? Do their day job, have a bit of trading on the side. The number of people I trained in 2020, 2021 have really increased dramatically as people used to do the courses during that time. And so what I've seen is obviously people start to change or try to look at this as a real career change. And so if we start to talk about, I think last time we talked about this sort of, retail traders getting into trading. Now the debate has moved on to actually, I want to quit my day job. I want to become a full-time trader, which is, of course, a complete different conversation to have, which I have with them with a really big, nasty dose of realism, which we can touch on a little bit later. But so the challenge, and I think I'll let Patrick into the discussion in a second. I think the challenge now for us is, this is not just about a little bit the John around the block trying to make a few bops to buy a new pair of trainers. This is now growing to something where people actually truly believe to be a career. And there we just have to start the discussion, which means you need a trainer to actually do that. And I say to people, my first job is a trader, my second job is a trainer. So I say this not to sell courses. I say this because I truly mean it, right? If you want to play the piano, yes, you can play around with the piano and you can play a few simple songs in self-study, but you're never going to play in a concert hall. You're never going to play in front of people. So that's the sort of angle that I have. So what I'm doing now is really a lot in that space, but I'll let Patrick say a few words about this as well, and then we continue there.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks so much for inviting me on the show. I'm very excited and appreciate that, Steve. I think I echo what Beat's saying. Ever since COVID, those 2020, that kind of March, spring, and then everything kind of changed after that. I think there's a lot of people out there who offer a lot of different things, and I guess I have a healthy kind of optimism in the sense that if you provide a really good product, you'll cut through. And it's much like for me in the education space. I come from it as a late career changer. I was in my late 30s. I was surrounded by young'uns, 21-year-olds in the futures desk trading Bund. And I've always been an outsider, but it didn't stop me. And the key is I asked a lot of questions. I got great experienced mentors to help me along the way. And I went for it. I think much like getting a suit, not one size fits all. I mean, we're very close to our clients. We have one foot in the kind of institutional space, one foot in the retail space. And many of our clients, what we're seeing is, we have some of the big shops that are the senior staff, maybe not in a front office, but they're senior staff in operations or mid or back office or risk. We're seeing that globally. So I think there's a big surge of people who maybe are doing really well, thank you very much, but they're kind of bored and they want to feel alive again, and they're not afraid of taking a bit of risk. And the other thing I would say is people want more. You can't rely on the cookie cutter pre-recorded videos to get you from A to B, because you're a mate and it's context, right? It's like, well, where's the curve? Where's dollar position? What are the risk events? And the things change based on that, and it's like, well, you need that kind of temperature reset each day, I feel, and that will be and a mentor and a guide. So I do feel there are some of the guys, like to include Beat in this, who do it really well, are deliver that, and that's, I feel, above and beyond what you're seeing in the current market. Yeah,
I think I want to quickly mention something about that. So basically, the programs these days are really on a level where I think we offer, like, especially the sort of, I only do one-on-ones, it's a bit similar to what we do here now, but just in one-on-ones, people are allowed to record the session so they have something to go back on, because there's just no point. Our field is so vast, there's no point to have a few slides here and there. This is about the closest you get to take people on the trading floor. It's sort of live, it's throughout. So basically what I do is all the key topics that you need to know if you want to be a spot trader in a bank. So everyone who leaves my course, in theory now, would be not quite a market maker, because we obviously don't quite cover that little element of market making when you have to quote 2022 and you get it around your neck. But we stop short before that, right? So reality is everyone who leaves the course knows about risk on, risk off, carry, correlations, all the dodgy stuff that happens. Oh, okay, if this happens in the bond market, that's going to happen in FX. So really, people are trained here at the highest level possible. I would actually say, and that's some of the feedback I have, that the stuff that is on offer is on investment banking level. And to be honest, whenever I have someone that is interested, I have an hour call with them, and what they think, they interview me, but I actually interview them as well. Because what I don't do, because first of all, I enjoy education. So I enjoy trading, but I also enjoy education and pass the vast knowledge on that I think I have after nearly 40 years. But I want to have people that are keen to learn, that understand this is not a get rich quick scheme. This is not about, oh yeah, if I do the 3-day or the 5-day course, I'm going to be a rock star. No, this is the groundwork. I'm running chat rooms where people usually stay on. I have people that are with me for years and years and years in my chat rooms. And that's where the learning continues, right? So it's not just an information tool and, Powell said this or that. It's about, okay, what's the story? Oh, that's just the news. Or what is Beat thinking? What type of risk is he taking? How is he taking that risk? How is he managing that risk? So the whole process, so taking people actually from start to finish, right? Now, I have people that I trained that have now indeed transitioned to be full-time traders, right? Took them 2 years. They've done all the right bits. They've done the work. They put the work in. And finally, I think I had one guy who told me just a few months ago that he had the first time a 5-digit monthly result, right? So come on, that's the stuff we talk about, right? And this is not done with like all the scammers with the flashy Ferraris on the front page. This is done with solid groundwork on the learning side, and then their part, which I have to applaud them, stick it out, understand it's a journey, right? I wasn't born a trader. I just have one advantage: the bank paid for all my mistakes, right? While if you're a retail trader, right, you have to kind of make sure that right from the start, you put them in a framework where the most important thing is probably lesson 1, day 1, risk management, right? Make sure the account is safe, make sure the sort of groundwork is there, that they understand risk, understand how to take care of an account, and start to grow from there, right? So that's really, and to be honest, I have had a few fantastic success stories, which you just feel a bit like a proud father, to be honest. I'm in the age where I can say that I hit the 6-0 this year, which is, can't believe it, but so be it.
Okay, that was brilliant, both of you. Thank you. And so many things came up for me there, and funnily enough, I'm recording this just before I head off to Vancouver, where I'm going to be talking at the Bear Bull Traders Conference, and they're all retail traders, and I always feel that retail traders are the real deal. They eat what they kill, and if they don't kill, they don't eat, they go hungry. And like, I'm going to use that phrase "beat" in the talk. That when it's exactly the same phrase I was going to use. If I screw up, I still got paid.
And to be honest, this is part of the reality check I make with people to understand. This goes back to the caveman.
Yeah,
you eat what you kill, and if you don't kill, you don't eat, right?
Yes,
about as simple as that.
Stamp traders, like you as stamp traders, we not only got paid, but we got given money to trade.
Yeah,
and we screwed up sometimes, or we got trades that we couldn't screw up. But like you say, it was. There was something about this is what's really interesting for me, because the rise of internet trading. Maybe it's been sort of 20 years, 15 years, but it really sort of took off with COVID, and it really took off with crypto. Those two events introduced a vast amount of people to trading. Now, I get a lot of people come to me because they got caught into one of those big bull runs. I say caught. They initially thought it was a blessing, turning sort of 5 figures into 6 figures and then 7 figures. And then they thought they were traders. And really what they'd done is they got into the classic bull market phase, made a lot of money, assumed they could trade, and then in nearly every single case they gave all of it back over the next couple of years when the bear market came along and they realised, damn, I don't know anything about trading. This wasn't supposed to happen. And then they call me. And interestingly, I get a lot of calls from retail traders who maybe have got that sort of 2-3 years experience behind them, and they want to work with me usually on the psychology, the mental game, the the process that gets interfered with the behavioural stuff. And I always ask them, how many times have you been beaten up by the market? And sometimes they say, well, I've never really been properly beaten up. I'm sort of coasting along. And I say, well, I cannot work with you until you've been beaten up severely at least 2 or 3 times. There is nothing to work with there.
Yeah.
And the other thing I tell them is, you have to develop the technical side of the game. You have to get your market understanding right. And this is the bit where we learned that on the job. We, myself and you, Beat, and you to a degree as well, Patrick, working in a prop trading room. You learn from the people around you, and unconsciously you're being mentored by them. You support each other. You rise and you fall together often. You just ask a colleague, they're not even realizing they're mentoring you, and they're mentoring you. You have some incredible lessons in those environments that people sitting at home who like you say, that they take the prop trading test, which our last guest was on talking about that, or you try to learn it from online, which is it's probably as effective as learning golf online or learning to swim online.
I like that. That's a good one.
I love it.
It's never really well, So what's your view on that? Because I think this is where I'm really interested in what you two are doing, because you're really going into those technical aspects and like you say, the groundwork and again, just to sort of when I was trading, they put me on the funding book at first, and you learn so much on those liquidity and funding books that you don't get. And you have that for life, even though it's not a major part of the job. You have that for life. What you learn there, you can't learn anywhere else.
To be honest, I think this is probably the only element that you can only, let's say, if you sit in a trading seat in a bank and you get client X ask you in 400 million X, right? You can't replicate that in training, right? The only so So I think I would say the difference from what you say and what we experience from me being growing up versus what we probably do, and Patrick will talk about it as well afterwards, is it's really more the proprietary side of trading, right? Yes, there is a market. Yes, of course, we talk about, you know what I'm hearing, you know, sovereign names, but, you know, like the flow stuff, the fixing, the mindset fixing. So that's all part of it as well, because some of the fixings obviously can hurt people when the trend is left and suddenly the fixing is on the right-hand side. Right? So people need to understand that the last 2-3 days of the month can be tricky. But aside from that, it's really hardcore. It's really the stuff I actually, and I'll be very honest with you, I felt I was a good trader before. Since I educate people, I became a better trader. Why? Because a lot of the stuff I know, I just took for granted, right? It's muscle memory. I didn't even think about it, blah, blah, blah. Now, if we talk about correlation, if we talk about carry, talk about the impact of whatever the bond has to this, CDS has to that, or all from the correlation side, you suddenly pay a lot more attention to yourself. You suddenly go like, oh yeah, you know, patience. I'm a lot more patient these days than I've ever been in the job. The big advantage from retail versus institutional trader is you can actually drop FOMO, because you know what? You don't have a boss behind you that says, oh, euro just went up 2 big figures. Have you been long? And you actually have to turn around and tell him, no, I was just stopped out of my short. So you don't have that. So you have to make that work. And that's what I actually tell people as well in this whole. So basically, people with me, they are learning as if they would be a graduate sitting next to me, right? So they 2-3 months. This is about how the program takes. If they stay in my chat rooms, I have them for years. So this is like sitting next to me every single day, right? Looking over my shoulder. They see my risk. They see what I do, blah, blah, blah. So reality is, I think, the key here is, and this is going a little bit against of what you said in a way. What they will not get is being beaten up, because they learn not to be, right? And that is really what we have to do, because the reality is the biggest problem in retail trading is underfunding. So you start to trade, you lose, and at the end your balance is so low you can never have a comeback, right? That's the problem. So what we have to do, Patrick, myself, we really have to make sure they don't get that low. So I can't sit here and wait, yeah, you know what, I'll let you get beaten up one day, so you know what are you talking about.
Just stepping in here for a second to tell you about my new book, Mastering the Mental Game of Trading. Now, this book has been reviewed by quite a few leading figures in the markets, and they've left some outstanding comments. Brent Donnelly, author of The Alpha Trader and the Art of Currency Trading, called it one of the most important trading books in years. Mike Bellafiore, what I love about this book from Stephen is that it helps you sharpen your mental game by sharing entertaining and enlightening real-world stories from his 25 years of trading experience. And Linda Rashke said, I could read it once a month, it is that enjoyable. Mastering the Mental Game of Trading is available in paperback, Kindle and Audible, and can be bought at Amazon and all good book retailers. Now back to the podcast. Beaten up in this sense, I don't mean so much losing all your account or perhaps having to deal with a drive-by from a large hedge fund. I mean more about, sort of setting yourself unrealistic expectations, falling short of them, dealing with many of the setbacks that come with trading, and then kind of going on tilt, kind of losing the plot, which everyone does. It doesn't matter how late you are in your career, but I think you learn to get better at coping with it. You learn to give it a place. You learn to understand it and accept it, and then move on from it. So I would say psychologically beaten up rather than necessarily physically beaten up, rather than, you've obviously taken some sort of hit from the money, but maybe you've left a lot of money on the table. So that's kind of what I mean. You need to have those experiences really before you can start going through this deeper work.
To be honest, I think a lot is learning also tactical trading, right? It's a lot about macro, understanding the underlying, fitting in the chart. So I'm basically, what I say to people is I teach tradable macro. That's really when we boil it down to, right? I just had a call with a guy today, And that's what really he was really good in macro and didn't understand why it can't make any money. I said, yeah, because you miss exactly that link. So I have like 20 years of a spot trader, 20 years of a macro trader. I combined the two, happy days, right? So that's really what I think the essence is of trying to get people into a successful trading career.
And that difference there, okay, and I'll come to you in a minute, Patrick. That difference there is a difference between knowing what trading is and being a trader, or learning to trade and being a trader.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of these conversations. So there's a lot of work I do in the equity space with people moving from analyst roles in funds to PM roles, and the success rate of that is really, really poor. And they can't let go of the analyst in them and become a risk taker. And you know, it's.
You just said it, Stephen. You just said it.
Yeah, and you know, it is such a journey. Patrick, sort of following on from what Beat said there. Is it Beat or Beat? I'm never quite sure. It's Beat.
It would be Beat, so you pronounce the A, but you know what? I'm in the UK for like 27 years. You can call me anything.
I get it wrong.
Okay, so Patrick, from what you've heard there, I mean, you had a slightly different learning experience because, you know, well, there's two things I want to ask you about, actually. I mean, one, you went into a prop firm. You said you did quite a late career change, but I think a lot of the people we're talking about here are doing those kind of mid-year career changes. So in one sense, you've got almost the perfect experience to do what you're doing. But there's another angle which I'm really curious with you, because having been in journalism, I'm presuming you've got really good communication skills. And a lot of feedback I get from people who've signed onto a course with a trader is that they say, well, they just couldn't communicate with me. You know, they had a great system or process and I signed up for it, and their communication skills were dreadful. And I think that's why I never learned anything off them. So I'd like to just sort of put both of those points to you in terms of what you do.
Yeah, no, thanks, Steve. I mean, I guess it's just I was lucky because I came in late 30s and I had to kind of digest the complex into tradable macro, similar to Beat. And I was lucky that I had good mentors along the way who took risk in size. And it was kind of managing their own risk. I've never been paid a salary, so it was eating and killing. Always paid a desk fee as a local. So it was very much, you know, biology in, you know, when you didn't have a good week, you really did feel different in your guts. It was like that. I couldn't lean on anything. And, you know, when I got it wrong, and I got it wrong a few times, especially that first year, I was beaten into, you know, I was knocked and battered. A few ulcers later and a few grey hairs later, I you know, it was only my second year that things came good. And I was like, well, one of the things I would say is, you know, for anyone trading is don't be afraid of asking questions, and, you know, don't be afraid of getting it wrong, but learning from the process. Not everyone has there's no silver bullet, and there's no one who doesn't make mistakes. So I do feel that, you know, that coming back to the communication, I'm pretty good at communicating, but it's only because I had to be. And I know what it's like when you've got loads of things flying around. I try and make it as simple as possible for my clients. And that's why we've got a nice, healthy sort of mix between a bit of institutional, a bit of retail. But I like vet people because it's just a partnership, and I put my love and soul into it. And that's why many of our clients come back and again and stick with us. And, you know, if they do the whole process, we get a futures desk at the end of it. That's our name, our reputation. We vouch for these people and we facilitate that desk. So we really do get them match fit. But one thing I wanted to mention, because I've loved this show for years is the head stuff. And for me, often, and being beaten up. Now, I don't know what's worse, being beaten up after a loss or being mentally beaten up after a massive win, because, you're either God or you're on the pavement. And sometimes I'll come up, I'll have a really good day, a really good week, and then I'll just make some really stupid mistakes. So sometimes I just need to go for a run in a park. I need to have that space because my head is starting to play tricks on both ways, both having a really good day or a really bad day. And I think sometimes it's not just about, struggling. It's about your head just going when you're kind of at that crest, so to speak. So that's what I'm thinking.
I think that was an interesting one, Patrick, there, because and that's where maybe also the differences between our two careers is when you work in a hot seat in the bank, the realization of you're only as good as your next trade, which is something I really like to say quite a lot to people when they go like, oh yeah, I just made this. This next thing waiting around the corner. So what we learned, or maybe it's me specific, I don't know, and this is what I try to pass on, is this kind of, it's maybe a bit boring to the lower end, don't get dragged too low, but also the upper end not get lose the top side. So operate in this more, is humble the right word? I don't know. It's just I'm so in the market all the time. I've done it for so long, right decision, wrong decision, made money, lost money, that you're just trying to operate in the comfort zone of, for example, one big part is what we do on my side is, when you talk trade planning. What is the actual stress of trading? The actual stress of trading is not knowing, right? So if you plan a trade, so you go okay, I'm bullish euro by here, here, and here, and that's a stop. Okay, what's the cost? Okay, that's too much. Okay, you cut your notional until you know what it costs. So now I don't have a stress because I'm just saying to my guys as well, the day I have stress, I quit. Because one thing you can actually do is proper risk management, proper trade planning, which no retail trader usually does, is your cost before the trade even stands, right? So what does it mean? You have no stress. Guess what, right? Because euro goes down, okay, buy my first leg. Euro goes down, okay, buy my second leg. The other guy is already fuming. He has already a red lamp somewhere. And I just go, okay, hopefully we go down a bit more to get to the third one. Yeah, then comes the stop loss area once you buy the third clip. But I already know what it costs when it goes wrong. So I don't even watch my book because I know what it's going to cost. So what I mean by that is you eliminate the stress factor. You tend to make less mistakes. When do the mistakes start? The mistakes start when the stress rises, right? When you actually not know what happened next. And what happens to retail? They watch their platform or their position go red, deeper red, and after 5 hours of watching it go red, they quit, right? What is it going to be? The low, or probably, right? So what I work a lot, and to be honest, this is stuff I do. I just pass on what I do, basically, right? And so we eliminate these mental tricks, maybe your area, Steve, to kind of reduce stress. Because we all know the trader brain is not our big brain. The trader brain is that little crappy first brain from the Neanderthal, which is what? Fight or flee. That's where you end up when you get stressed in trading, right? So you just want to manipulate that part of the brain. And trade planning is basically the answer, in my opinion, to reduce a lot of stress from people, right? Well, but this on top of obviously the normal education. But just when we talk about trading, talk about tactical, talk about emotions, which we all know it's your job, Steve, that side of the
it's fascinating because I do a lot of work on process, but I do a lot of work on process aligned to how you are at the same time, because one affects the other. It's a reflective process. It's you do something stupid, then you feel crap, then you do something even more stupid, and you get caught in this cycle. Or you suffer a bad outcome, and rather than accepting it's the randomness of markets, you feel crap and you beat yourself up. Okay. Or you do something really good, but rather than accept it's a random in the markets, you think you're a king and you go and do something really stupid on the back of that. And trying to come to terms with that is kind of counterintuitive. So it's, the more you can put it into process, like you said, the easier it gets. The stress is never going to go away. And I make a point of, that in my career, and I was a trader for nearly 25 years, and the second half of my career was on a completely different trajectory to the first half, in that I was a lot more successful, I made a lot more money, I took a lot more risk. But also that was a lot more stressful because, what I actually did, what I went through a kind of change halfway through my career, was actually becoming comfortable with the idea of uncertainty. I think for the first part of my career, I spent a lot of time trying to hedge or mitigate or moderate uncertainty, thinking, if I could just make pain-free money, it would be easy. And therefore my returns were kind of, you would say, I think, some years were good, but other years were really not good. There wasn't a consistency there. And then in the latter half of my career, I went through a bit of a transformation, really started focusing on being a risk taker rather than an analyst, really focused on developing my risk process. And then the performance started consistently, I started performing consistently well, which then gave me the confidence to take more risk, to at times go full VAR, to they use that phrase, go balls deep, that sort of stuff. Okay, but that comes with a lot more stress. Yeah. But in a way, you've got a process there that you now understand, and you're accepting of that uncertainty that you're taking. But it's true. I work with people who have been doing this job 30, 40 years, and they're running $1 billion plus at funds, of capital, and they say it doesn't get any less stressful ever. And they don't stop making the stupid mistakes that they made in their first 5 years. But they are better at handling it. They are better at dealing with the aftermath. They are better at getting back on the bike. It's almost like they learn to be a risk taker.
I think art is a bit like in boxing in a way, right? When you've been a trader for a long time, you've been beaten many times, you got up again many times, and I think part of what you describe when I look at my career is also about, your skin get a bit thicker. When you had a stupid loss, you've been easier to kind of, you can make money, so you can dismiss it a lot quicker. So I think it's part of the growth process also. Let's not forget, if you're a trader for 20, 30, 40 years, think about how many decisions you had to take. Right? Yeah. So at some point, of course, we all get better the longer we do the job anyway, but also handling with the emotions, with the roller coaster of emotions in trading, I think you just start to handle a lot better by pure experience, by time also, right?
You're a professional decision maker for a career. The more decisions we make, and it's been scientifically proved throughout a day, the less competent we are at making decisions. And you're making, do I add? Do I wait? Do I pause? Do I double up? I'm
just asking myself now.
So by the late afternoon, your ability to make a good decision is seriously compromised. And I don't think it's a surprise that many of my best or my worst trades happen late afternoon or evening.
Yeah, to be honest, that part got easier because New York has stopped trading FX since about 10 years. So 6 o'clock London time, it's actually over. So that forced me to stop to trade.
Yeah, I got so badly killed a few times over the Fed meeting decision, which I'd been in work 12 hours by then. It was I was at my worst ever to trade. If I'd have known then what I knew now, it was just don't trade it. Watch the market around it. If you've got a position, you've obviously got to manage it, but don't trade it.
I love FOMC.
Yeah. Most of us just sat there with our, we're taking bets off each other.
One thing I wanted to ask actually is, well, not ask, but mention, you both mentioned some really good stuff there. And for me, it's just knowing that toolkit when butterflies go off, or I'm feeling a little bit queasy, or whatever it is. And I say to my clients, look, planning the trade is one thing. It's only one half of it. You've got to actually trade the plan, and it's so simple. People miss that. And the other thing I would say is, if you've got a section of capital, and I know Beat, you do this, and I think I've poached it off you, so sorry, but you've got a margin, and that's bullets. It's not money. So you just set that aside. You slice and dice it however you want, but essentially you've got trades in you, and then that means it's, you're taking away from that money aspect, which has, it can affect your head. So that's something that I do with my clients, is say, look, if you're pulling the trigger and it's real money and it's absolutely, you're absolutely full of anxiety, you're trading too big, or you just can't accept the loss. Usually I'm quite old school. I write down all of my trades in pen and paper, and I write the loss out. And I had to do that as a fader, because if you're fading in legs, and Beat, you can back me up here, it's surprising what your loss is, because I'm only doing like 25% clips, stops there, fine. But when certainly it works for me, when you write that actual loss out, it's actually a little bit bigger than I imagined. So that's a really good tool that I use for myself and also my clients. So it's just doing those are little chips I picked up a lot over the decade and some.
Yeah, to be honest, what I use, and I think that is where the individuality comes in, and that is usually where I talk to my guys about various different avenues, and people really have to translate what I say into their world and try to also find their way, which I help them. But we are so individual. That helps. So what helps for me, or what I did in the earlier days, and I still do, and I sort of pass part of that on, is especially for those retail traders that are relatively newer to the game, is distance yourself from money. And that is not, yes, we're all there to make money. Yes, we all know exactly we manage our risk. But what I mean is, when people have they're like 200 quid or 300 quid in the money, right? And then I go like, yeah, no, I'm not taking profit, blah, blah, blah. And then it goes like, it costs 100 quid at the end, right? Then they go like, oh shit, with this 300 quid, I actually want to buy a new pair of new trainers or a new phone or a new thing. So suddenly day two is like, oh shit, I can't buy that phone, or I can't do this, I can't do that. So when you attach yourself with the actual notional risk, actually the money of things, you then, and I'm talking now retail, not professionals. A retail person will ultimately usually start to think about goods, stuff they can buy, right? And the moment you go into that trap, I think you give yourself an additional difficulty of failure. When you fail, it's not just, oh, I didn't bank the money. No, it's like, oh, I can't buy this. So it's actually creating more scar tissue, I personally think, than when you try to distance yourself from money. I do most of the stuff in a percentage play. This has actually two reasons. One, I try to go away from notional money, but I also have people that gone from, they traded maybe one certain amount, 20K, 25K for 2 years until they were ready. Now they suddenly have a 250K account, right? Yeah, I help them for the transition, because But you need a percentage gain to be able to suddenly manage more money, right? You know that, Steve, right? So in my case, if my OM suddenly doubles, I just take double the risk. Yeah, it's a percentage game. Yeah, 50 grand loss is now 100 grand loss, but percentage-wise, it's exactly the same thing. So that has to be learned, right? And if you learn a percentage game from the start, you actually have a little bit of an easier journey later in your career of increasing the size that you trade. Because if you go notional, think about that guy I just talked about. So his account goes 10 times bigger, right? So 1 grand that he got used to in 2 years is suddenly 10 grand, right? So if that is a red 10 instead of a green 10, it can quite quickly freak you out and freeze you, right? And so that you cannot allow to happen. So you have to. So this is my way how I did find it easier. And to be honest, I learned that at Goldman Pro, because up to Goldman Pro, our P&L was always notional. Oh, I made 50 grand, 100 grand, lost 200 grand, whatever. And suddenly there at Goldman, you talk like percent, right? I go like, I was a big fan of percent in the beginning because it sounded so like nothing, right? Until you kind of just up your game and learn the new game. And since then, I'm just smitten, I think it's easier, you grow easier. At times it helps you also to deal with failure easier because it's not an amount of money. But for some people, it might be your version, Patrick. For some, it might be mine. And people just have to hear the different solutions that we try to offer and then pick what works for the individual, I think.
Just a quick reminder that the AlphaMind Podcast is sponsored by the Society of Technical Analysts, who are a brilliant member-led organisation who provide outstanding education, seminars, conferences, talks on all aspects related to price action trading and also more expansively now towards system development and behavioural performance as traders. Do check them out. Their website is technicalanalysts.com. And we are delighted to be connected to them, and of course their brilliant home study course, which you can get a discount on through the AlphaMind website. Now back to the podcast. Question I'd like to pose to both of you: who are the oldest clients you've had who have come for training as traders, and was there a difference between them and coaching younger people? Was there a difference between coaching people new to it and people who are taking it as a second stage or third stage career move, and how was that? How was that for you working with them?
Yeah, the oldest for me was 57, and this guy, he had a remarkable outcome. Actually, he started in IT. We did quite a few one-to-ones, and he did my 1-year program, and he was really well paid and very bored. And I taught him the curve, and he took that, and now he's actually got the job of his dreams in a local Fed bank in Kansas. Wow. So he's the only quant without a PhD. And I'd love to claim victory on all of that, but it'd be a complete lie. But I certainly helped him look at the price of debt and how the different tenors work, and what that actually means in spot, and how things correlate, and the value of debt, and buying and selling it with auctions, because I've traded the auctions obviously, and he really took that on board, and he can't believe it. He's got the job of his dreams, and he's on good money, but he's decided, he was head of an IT in real estate, and now he's in it. So that was 57.
That's fantastic. And what about you, Beat?
To be honest, my oldest is probably about 72.
Wow.
But that one is slightly different, right? So he owns commercial properties. So he's been renting out commercial properties. And as he got older, he started to feel like it gets like more and more stressful, right? And the people he has to deal with are unpleasant. So he goes like, So his yield was maybe 5 or 6% or 7% on that, right? And so we started chatting and blah, 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 and one led to the other. And so he goes like, and he is totally relaxed, right? Because if you come from a 6% yield world and you just put the money, you sell your real estate and put it into a trading account, and you only have to make 6%. It's quite stress-free in a way, right? So he took longer than your average student, because obviously, I'm not the youngest either, but given from the job, we're still a little bit more techy than he was. So the tech element was a bit of an issue, so it took a bit longer for things to settle. But now, to be honest, he's blowing away. He sends me the odd charts, like, do you think, it's a good sell here? And he probably makes, 10% now. It's a hilarious story. But when you talk about age, and this is the big difference I see with age groups. I have a lot of younger ones, mid-age, older. The younger ones, I always have to make sure they learn stuff. This is not about Googling. This is about learning and stick it in your brain, right? Because when things start to happen, there's no time for Googling. You have to actually understand. We take decisions in, a fraction of a second. Oh, news. Oh, sell this. Oh, buy that. There's no time, right? So when they actually think, oh yeah, I write it down, but if I forget, I can Google it. That's already the end of the story. So I tell everyone from the start, I said, listen, no disrespect to your age. Your generation that is used to press buttons, get everything on an app. If you want to learn this job properly, here, it has to go into your head, right? And so that is really the difference. So I would say mid-age to upper age, they kind of use, like we old school, kind of learn the stuff so that you actually memorize it. And because let's put it macro. The news, I have 40 years of news in my head, right? Yeah, you find different ways how to put it in what kind of drawers, blah, blah, blah. But I can draw on so many news, headlines, reactions, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I get it, right? If you're 23 or 24, you don't have it. Yeah, okay, start today, right? Look at the news different, read stuff. Learn how to sort of, there's a few things we work on for things to settle, how to settle it, blah, blah, blah. But so that is the difference. So while the older ones are kind of learning different, right? The younger ones, actually, you really have to motivate them that this is not about just another app. This is about, if you want to be a successful full-time retail trader over time, you got to actually come to a level of institutional nature. Meaning, what I'm trying to do, and this is what I say when people ask, what do you do? I say, I lift you out of the retail world. I give you the eyes of an institutional trader. Yeah, there's a few bits and bobs that do not belong in there, which is market making. We talked about this. But the people that make these rates are institutional people, right? So you have to start looking at it the same way as we do as pros, right? And to be honest, if you learn the key elements of what is actually moving the market, most of them get it, because let's be honest. And I said this actually, I had my first chat with a policeman yesterday. I had every sort of job for now. The best are actually the pilots. I had a sergeant for the Met Police, right? It's a bit frightening at first. And it's like it's kind of a very fascinating story, what kind of different people at different jobs. And that would be also another question for you, Steve. It's not just the age, it's actually the jobs. And so I can tell if someone calls me and I ask, what do you do for your day job? And they say IT. Okay, my next question is, how much IT? Or you basically just operate on spreadsheets? And if they say yes, I already know my work is cut out, right? Because the slowest learners are the deep core hardcore IT because they need a spreadsheet for everything. So these people would ask me, Beat, is there another way where if A happens, it's going to be B? And I say, sorry, no. Markets are gray, right? So that means one day A means B, the next day A means C, and actually next week A could be F. So they struggle with that process, right? While the pilot, as I already said, is the best. He is used to sit in a cockpit. You probably know who I'm talking about, Patrick. Watching a few buttons. Not all are that important, but I guess there are a few important ones. And so they understand very quickly what we talk about, correlation, pressure, that. They probably have a good understanding of risk and risk reward because, let's face it, they also cannot make a mistake in the plane when they're up in the air. Like I say, watching markets simultaneously, like I do, bonds, equities, FX, they have no problem because they watch a cockpit. So they're the best, or they're the fastest learner. So it's also the day jobs that people are in, which see different speeds of progression in the learning side, actually, which is quite funny.
That's interesting because pilots are very process orientated. They go through their checklist every single flight as they do it, and the checklist is a fantastic tool that very few traders will ever use. Be really helpful. And you're right. What I find is there's a lot of unlearning of how the world works. So people who have come from that background where there's a lot of uncertainty, maybe they've worked in sports, the arts, music, they seem to do really well. They seem to pick up trading really well because there is no fixed rules. There's no fixed world they operate in. There is no necessarily a right or wrong. And performance can be variable depending on how they are, how they woke up. So you get a lot of this. I think that's really interesting when you say unlearning. I also love it that your 72-year-old came to trading because he wanted something less stressful.
I love it.
It's hilarious. The guy lives in a beautiful part of the country, even. So he has and listen to this, just to round the story up. He had sort of a okay garden shed. So he worked from his garden shed. He had that before, so that's not just a COVID thing. And then for a few times he sort of, we had the lessons with a different background. He said, I'm building a new shed. Next time we had a lesson, it was when you go to Canada, tomorrow, these block houses with the fireplace and everything. So I looked at it, suddenly has his 4 or 5 screens, right, which he needed someone to help to install because he couldn't himself. So he has 5 screens. Almost on all of them are some charts. There's a fire in the background. It's like a log cabin somewhere in the rock.
Wow,
it's absolutely hilarious.
Amazing. It's that is brilliant. It's interesting actually though, because I do get that. Working with people, having to report to people. You talk about having the boss behind you. Why weren't you longer Eurodollar? That earlier on. That is a really difficult thing. I remember once I was offered a trading, the boss at Commerzbank came up to me and asked me if I'd be willing to take over the trading desk. And I was like, no, I don't want to be looking after people. I don't want to be running people. This job is hard enough trading in the market. I don't need, I don't need the politics and I don't
need it.
You were in FX, I was in rates, but it was the thought of managing people felt abhorrent to me, and I hear so many cases of people who run money for people, and it's the worst decision they ever made, and it completely kills their trading, and they end up giving their money back, and they start making money again because. They're asking them, why aren't you making 20% a year? How did you lose this money last month? Why didn't you get that move right? And just
to that topic, I was at a career change in 2010 when Goldman Prop closed because of the regulation after the financial crisis. I had a psychometric interview in New York for a hedge fund, which I passed, and then I was offered a role at the hedge fund. And then I had a good friend who worked there, and so we got chatting, and I sort of realized how the hedge fund world changed at that point, where it's sort of gone down to almost weekly reporting, and exactly a bit along the line you say, and I go like, do I really want that? Right? Because you take, I had, before I took that, or almost took that, no, actually before I took the Goldman job, I also interviewed with Citi Prop and CSFB Prop. Then obviously Goldman was the winner, which you just have to take when you get that one. But the guy at Citi, great guy, lovely guy, can't remember his name, military guy. So he asked me one question. Is a prop trader an artist, right? Or is he, what is he, right? Or is he, and I go like, yeah, that's a good point. He's probably an artist because you have your setup, you have your way of work. And if something interrupts that work, or someone asks you the wrong question, you feel like kind of, that's wrong, right? So I guess it's art, right? It's not science, it's art. And that's stuck with me. And this goes back to 2004, 20 years ago, he asked me that question. Yeah. I never got that question because I think it was a brilliant question.
Yeah. Patrick, any thoughts on what you're hearing?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just there's so much insights there, and I'm just thinking, if that was, I have a kind of bespoke, unique experience, and coming from being a kind of outsider, I realised that there's a lot of people out there without that experience, running my own risk in size. That's unique. So I kind of got my self-confidence back, really, because I always admired people who worked in banks, for example. And I've had this conversation with B, and I realized they don't know everything, and there's certain things I know that maybe like scaling up with some decent size and just running a different type of risk as well, which is my own. So I got happy with myself, and but what that did do is, because I had this imposter syndrome, I was absolutely rampant on asking everyone every single question through any means possible, reading every single book, just devouring and questioning everything. And one of the things that I do with my clients is, and this comes from trading data, is work out the reaction to that, and build a story. We've just done this big mini mapping session with Q1, and how did euro dollar perform? Well, dollar gave a lot of that back on some stunning macro. Why is that? And compare that with, say, dollar CAD, compare that with what dollar yen did. And for me, as a guy who's traded every single bit of data you can imagine, for me, it's not important if it doesn't move. So it's like, how big is that move? Is that move wrong, in inverted commas? Is the market late to the memo? And all of this stuff, along with dollar positioning, I think is key and essential. And I always try and work out the why. Pete was talking about, try and work out, do I really understand the move, and whether that's right or wrong, so to speak. And I'm still working that out. And I love it. I love the Sherlock Holmes in me, that, I may never find the answer, and that's great. I just love working out why.
Yeah, we all come to trading with a different angle. I mean, I love the puzzle. And I think, for me, finding out the why was a very big part of who I am. But ironically enough, that's when I said I went through this transition from analyst to trader. Just finding out the why isn't enough. That's kind of half the story. The other half is, how can I then make money out of that? And for the first half of my career, I wasn't very good at that. I just thought I just needed to know why the market was going to happen. But it's a quote which I once saw from Warren Buffett, who said, "Predicting rain doesn't count, building arcs does." And to me, that kind of, every trader has to just learn to build the arc, and that's the difficult bit. We can all predict rain, we can all have a good sense of where the market's going. And I think this is why I learned, going to mentors and trainers is so important. Lots of people learn technical analysis, lots of people learn fundamental analysis, lots of people learn, the drivers of markets, but they don't truly learn how to take and manage risk. And I guess that's what you bring.
Yeah, I mean, I think risk over rates and rates over macro, it's a personal thing, and I don't want to open up a hornet's nest here, but that's something I truly believe in, but to be discussed.
Yeah, to be honest, you just mentioned a very interesting point, and this goes again partly back to a little bit of psychology and about the blank and the understanding what moves the market. So given I've been a macro FX trader for a long time, so when I use my correlation, I use my crosses, there's really not many blanks. So and maybe it's like what we said earlier about how long I've been doing it. So you watch a market and it's a bit more like a movie than it is. You really have to concentrate on stuff. So what I'm trying to get across to people is all that I'm watching is most retail has like blank, blank, blank. Okay, get it, blank, blank, get it, blank, blank. And so they have a lot of blanks. And the blanks are actually what eats or sucks out the confidence, because you try a trade, lose, boom, I didn't know what's happening. So sometimes I say to people, especially in the beginning, when we talk about stuff and then I send them away to observe, it's not about some of the tricks to already trade them. It's about observing them. Are you able to spot why this just moved? Why did this just move? And suddenly people start to reduce the blanks, right? And suddenly it's like, yeah, get it, still a blank or two, or get it, right? And so that's step one. Step one is not money. Step one is actually trying to reduce the blanks. And what the reduction of blanks is doing, it supports confidence. Because suddenly you go like, oh, okay, yeah, we talked about this. Oh yeah, I see it, right? And so it's this build up. So what I'm trying to do, it's not just saying, oh, you got to watch this or that or this or that. It's also combine it with actually what it does to the soul, which is build up on the confidence level. Because we all our confidence takes a knock if we get a trade wrong, but it's how to recover. Now, the professional trader, hopefully, has learned enough not to let it go to scar tissue, right? But a retail trader will turn the lack of confidence and the failures into real scar tissue. And to be honest, once you arrive at that point, it's very hard to turn, right? Because scar tissue just leads to, oh, I buy this, but probably I lose it anyway, right? It's this kind of behavior where you go like, I buy some euros, but I probably get stopped later anyway, right? And that is what scar tissue is doing. And you start trading from the wrong side of things. And to be honest, Patrick knows all this about, and you will too, Steve. There are people that respond just very well to this, right? And there are people that need more, and then there are people that don't get, it's an individual sport, I was almost saying, which not everyone is made for it. I just had a call today where, I was asked, how you see my progression? I go like, listen, we haven't even started yet. So during the course, I can tell you if you actually start to click, right? And then I may be able to give you a little bit more of where I can see your progression going. But at this point, I don't even know if you're made for this. I will only figure out at some point during the course, because actually in my career, I was in charge of a group of people. There's a grad coming in. I gave him a few small currencies, as we used to do. Right, the guy, happy chappy, always good for a joke and a bit of banter. And then there was the moment when he sat in front of the screen and he wouldn't move. Big eyes, wouldn't move, right? So I go like, okay, what's wrong with him? So I have a look. So he had some risk, right? And as soon as he had no risk, he was like dancing, right? And after a month or two, I took him away and said, listen, mate, where did you come from? What's your base? He said, oh, yeah, I'm like on the IT side of the things. I said, listen, go back to IT. You're not made for this, right? It's because this job can make you physically sick.
Yeah.
And I mean physically sick if you're not made for it. If you can't bear the stress, it's not good for your health. Bumped into a guy a few years later. He was the happiest bunny on the planet. Said, listen, best decision ever to leave the trading desk, right? So fine, right? That's the other side, right? Not everyone is made for it, right?
Yeah.
People at some point have to be honest to themselves, right? If it's too much stress, maybe it's not good.
I think that's interesting that, I've come across a lot of people who could have a similar story to you there. I actually believe anyone can succeed in trading. So I have a slightly different view, and there is a space for everyone. He might have been better working on a sort of structured derivatives book, for example. So one of the things that, I do is psychometric. And I've noticed that nearly all the spot FX traders, especially those sort of highly liquid products, tend to coalesce in one single part of that psychometric. They are of a certain type. Interestingly, the option FX traders, the opposite, almost directly opposite. And we've had some real success stories where people have moved, they tried to do options and they were a disaster. And then they moved to spot FX and they were brilliant, and the other way around as well. So I think anyone can succeed, but it's horses for courses. There is a certain mentality. I always say to be a spot trader, you've got to be a boxer. That's it. You have to be. You're stepping in the ring every day, and you're getting literally, you're getting punches rained upon you every single day. And that's it. But not every type of trading is like that.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so it creates a unique, I remember one guy, he was he had the potential to be a brilliant spot trader. He was working at a hedge fund. He moved from an execution role to a PM role. And he was really sharp. But, and this goes back to that having to work with people. He got caught out because the hedge fund was asking him to write a report every single week of his views on the market. Now, you know what spot trade is like. 1 minute you could be the most bullish person in the world. The next minute you could be the most bearish. So he's written, on his report, which goes to the investors, this week I'm really bearish on Euro. And he positioned himself. And then our next coaching meeting, he said, "Oh, Steve, I've had a disaster. I've dropped an absolute fortune." I said, "What's happened?" He said, "There's been a big move up in Eurodollar that week." He said, "I'm just on the wrong side." Oh, it's terrible. I said, and he said, "The worst thing is I wanted to be long." So I said, "Why are you long?" He went, "Because I'd written this report how at the beginning of the week I was really bad.
God.
Oh, no. It's going to be really bad, so I didn't want to turn the position." Yeah, so it can be really difficult sometimes, these things where you lock yourself into a view. But the guy just, he was made to be a great spot trader. That's why he was a great execution guy at a hedge fund. It's a very similar sort of activity. Yeah. But listen, this has been a great chat. I know we could go on for hours. I really do feel that. And we've got to get you back again later this year when Mark's back. But listen, I want to thank you, but I also want to give you a chance to tell the people listening where they can find out more about your work, both individually and together.
Patrick?
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. It's been an absolute blast, and the time's just flown by. It's amazing. So you can. I'll leave the link but basically it's the AdamisPrinciple.com. We're actually doing a free masterclass. I hope that's okay to plug. It's on the 2nd of May, and it's called How to Trade a Central Bank. So we've that's at 2 p.m. in London time. I'll leave all the link and everything with you, Steve, and that's very kind of you. So if you're a newbie or you're a, what's that?
Email it to me.
I'll email it to you.
Yeah. The notes for the podcast.
I will. I'll leave that. I'll email all the details, and it's pretty much for anyone from the very inexperienced to someone who just maybe needs a bit of fresh oxygen. And it's my own take on it, and it's what we're going to do. So I'll leave that. But thank you ever so much. It's been an absolute blast. I appreciate it.
It's been great having you on. It really has.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Steve, as well, to have me as a comeback on the show.
About you then, Beat.
Yeah, so you find me on macrobeat.co.uk. That's my company name. On the website, you can just follow a link where you could get a free trial of my chat room. That's usually out for a 1-week free trial. It's a sort of good way to get to know me, get to know my work, see what I do, see if it's a fit. It helps people usually also. Well, hopefully they already realize we are real people because we are thankfully on your show. But it sort of is a nice way of just for people to see what you actually, know. And then it starts from there, any sort of help we can give. But thanks again very much for being on your podcast, and fantastic. Thanks, Patrick, as well. Great to be together with you.
Yeah, thank you on behalf of myself and Mr. Randall. For agreeing to come on, and it was a great chat. And I'll put all your details on there as well, Beat, on the show notes. If you listen, check it out. And just thank you very much. Have a great rest of the week.
Thank you for listening to the AlphaMind Podcast today. We also want to extend a thank you to our podcast sponsor, the Society of Technical Analysts. Do check out their brilliant home study course, and you can see more about that at our website, alpha-mind.net. And of course, if you're keen to know more about how AlphaMind can help you, please do also look up further details of our services on our website, or reach out to us at info@alpha-mind.net. That just leaves us to say thank you, and we wish you the best of luck in the weeks ahead.